Hello, all you unsung athletes. Welcome to the Unsung Athlete Podcast, where we give a voice to you, the unsung athlete, training every day, grinding without excuse, reward or not. I'm your host, Shannon Rose. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to the Unsung Athlete Podcast, where we give a voice to you, the unsung athlete. I'm your host, Shannon Rose, and I'm here with Coach Gus Kratzke. Lifetime martial artist, coach, and mentor, husband, friend, and dog dad. Since I began training with you almost a decade ago, I have been honored to see you meet the love of your life, open your dream martial arts gym, and build this incredible life that you have. Not only have you coached generations of martial artists, you have trained and mentored my own girls since they were 3 and 5, and they have trained with you longer than they haven't, which makes you family. Coach, you inspire me every day, and I'm just so honored to have you here. So let's get started. Let's start with an opener. What excites your heart these days? What's top of mind for you these days?
Well, first off, thank you for having me, Shannon. I do appreciate being here. This is really exciting for me as well. Seeing this gym come to fruition and seeing the impact it's having on the students that we work with and seeing the growth of the community that Nikita and I really strove for to build when we started this gym. One of the things that, like kind of how you mentioned, I've been in martial arts my whole life, as has Nikita. We've had the pleasure and luxury of being able to be at a lot of different gyms and see how a lot of different, businesses are set up and how communities are set up and how cultures are set, and kind of gave us an idea of very much of what we were looking for and striving for, as well as, what we definitely did not want to become part of the culture and stuff like that. Things that are a lot of stereotypical tropes that just kind of happen in a lot of like business world in general or in the martial arts field specifically. But very fortunate because our goal was we want to be able to teach martial arts to creative and hardworking individuals and uphold the integrity of the martial arts we're teaching, and at the same time build a community for people to go to that makes them feel part of like something that is bigger than them. And what's really cool for like Nikita and I that brings us a lot of joy is when we see like all going on social media and seeing all of our students like out for like social gatherings outside of the gym, that these people would not have made connections had they not met at the gym. So I think that is something that really brings a lot of joy. And then on top of that is just obviously seeing people's growth as martial artists and that's them trying to, accomplish fitness goals or competitive goals. So we've got such a variety, but it's pretty cool. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's definitely something to be excited about. So you've been an athlete for a long time and you've coached, hundreds of athletes,
Maybe. Sure.
you've touched the lives of so many. And yet in this moment, do you consider yourself an athlete, and why?
Yes, I do still consider myself an athlete. There were times after my competitive career ended that I thought that maybe wasn't the case. But I think this is something, a quote that I heard from George St. Pierre. I think that most combat athletes, in particular martial artists, there's three types of people. You have the martial artist, you have the athlete, and then you have the fighter.
Yeah.
And I think that when you come to something like combat sports, you have to be a little bit of all three of those
Right.
or have a certain characteristic that fits your mold a little bit more. For me, I grew up in a family of athletes. My mom and dad were both three-sport, all varsity athletes in high school. My brother was a three-sport athlete. My sister was a three-sport athlete. All my uncles, all my aunts, everyone did sports growing up. So for me, it was the thing that I always found the most joy and pleasure in as a kid was being outside, doing sports, trying to play basketball, football, baseball, whatever it was. I always was doing those things because of who I was looking up to and what they were chasing. And then for me, I also discovered, I started Taekwondo, I think at around 6
Mm.
was when I first began that. And that was just because of my obsession with Chuck Norris and the Ninja Turtles and Karate Kid. And my mom knew that we had to do something because I'm going bonkers, bouncing off the walls and everything. But yeah, I still consider myself an athlete and, strive to be that example that our athletes aspire to be like, and show people that, even though I just turned 40, a month ago,
Yeah.
it's pretty cool. I take a lot of pride in the idea that I can still do what I do and training with people that are half my age or younger and or in their absolute prime and still doing my thing. So, that was a big shift because when I retired from fighting, I didn't think that was necessarily going to be the case anymore. Because at the time I had a eye injury that basically kept me from being able to do striking competitions anymore. So MMA, Muay Thai, boxing, all that stuff was off the table. So from there, it was pretty cool to just be able to kind of find that again and kind of shift that focus from, even though I'm still considering myself an athlete, I consider myself a coach more than an athlete. So yeah, I don't know, kind of roundabout answer, but yeah.
Well, and I mean, when you think of yourself as an athlete, the definition of being an athlete is someone who continually perfects their craft, and that
Mhm.
is what you do.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a fun little like diagram that I've seen, that kind of, maybe not diagram, but a little like picture that shows up online or whatever. And it says like the lifetime of a martial artist. And it's like for a short period you have, student, then it goes to competitor, and then it goes to, or like beginner and then competitor and then, athlete, and you have all these little short time spans, but underneath it all, white belt learning mentality student. And it just throughout the whole thing. That is really the trick of it. I've got incredible mentors and coaches, that I get to follow. Specifically, the big one is Coach Greg Nelson, who just turned 60 years old and is still on the mats and is still training and still dedicating his whole life. And then I get, the opportunity to go see our other instructor, Guru Dan Inosanto, who is 88 years old and still teaching. And literally, we were out in California a month ago for a seminar, and Guru Dan taught 4 hours of classes at his gym in Marina Del Rey, drove an hour and a half, and taught a 2 hour seminar to 100 plus people at 88 years old. And it's like, okay, here's some pretty amazing examples to try and follow. Let's see if we can just keep doing that. And if people want to follow me, well, at least I know that the example I'm trying to follow is a good one.
Oh my gosh. But that tells you, I mean, like you just said, you have this mentality that keeps you going forever. The body will slow down, the body will break down. There will be things that you're not going to be able to do exactly like you did when you're, like you said, half your age.
Mm.
But that mentality, like, I'm going to show up at 88 and coach a 4 hour seminar.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's basically saying, yeah, why not?
Yeah. And I think for me, it's funny because I think that mentality evolved out of just stubbornness. Because when my injuries occurred and I realized my competition career was done, that was such a big part of what I was defining who I was at the time, of a fighter and going to be a fighter and going to be this, and to have that side of it taken away. But then to try and just like, I had to obviously recover from the surgeries and everything, but during that time, I still missed training. I still missed doing martial arts. I still
Yeah.
missed, and I desperately did not want to do anything really remotely close to being a grown up. I didn't want to work in an office. I didn't want to work in retail. Like, I didn't want to go. I had opportunities for retail, hospitality. I had all these things I could have done, but all of them at the end of the day, when I'm on my shift, I was just waiting for the opportunity to go train. So every single day I'm doing that, and it just was like, I can't do this. So
Yeah. So you always knew that this was the path for you.
I knew that it would be. I didn't know if it was going to be one that was going to ever get to where it is now. I really had some doubts at times where I was like, because at times I was broke trying to make ends meet, working for zebra mats, trying to do anything I could,
Yeah.
anything and everything I could to like get a few bucks here, a few bucks there, trying to teach private lessons, trying to offer to coach here, asking for a coaching job here, whatever it could. I was just like, I just don't want to give up on this. Luckily, like I said, eventually, and so they always say it's always darkest for the dawn. It's like there was some I was really about a month away from about being like, if I can't figure this out in the next month, I really don't know if I'm going to be able to continue this. Like, I might consider going into a different field and then just training for fun. And then sure enough, an opportunity came along. And that's when I became the coach at Eden Prairie.
And that's when I met you.
Yes. Yeah, 2016.
That was literally 9 years ago, almost a decade.
Yeah,
It's
same.
crazy what has happened in a decade. I want to like just touch on that.
Yeah.
You, alongside your amazing wife and fellow coach Nikita, have built Burnsville Mixed Martial Arts here in Burnsville, Minnesota. And not only have you built this company with hundreds of members, you outgrew your previous space in less than a year in your first year, like within months. And really, it's a testament to you and, like you said, the culture that you fostered. I mean, it's a safe space where anyone can come and be a martial artist. Like you said, those three. You can be the athlete here. You can be the competitor here. You can be the lifelong learner here.
Mm.
And sometimes I feel like I blend between them. Sometimes I'm coming in and I'm like ready to go. Sometimes I'm recovering and it doesn't matter. Sometimes I'm coming in and I have a new client and I can't make it to classes and you're like, that's okay too. We just want to make sure that you're showing up.
Mhm.
So tell me, how did this concept come to life? You brought us through how you finally landed your dream job in Eden Prairie at the Eden Prairie Academy, but how did this version of your dream come to life?
Well, so when Nikita and I met, we initially met at a Muay Thai seminar.
Which was how many years ago?
That was June of 2016, so 9 years ago. Yeah. So and then, or actually that was April. So yeah, it was 9 years ago,
Yeah.
and we met at a seminar, started dating, and I, we instantly like had a connection right away through martial arts and everything else. And then after we started getting more serious, then I got the opportunity to start teaching over at Hayden's gym at Eden Prairie as a Muay Thai and kids instructor. We, as Nikita and I, continued to just, she was also teaching martial arts at her gym, or at her gym, the Minnesota Kali Group. She was running the kids and Muay Thai program there. So every night we'd come home and just talk for 2+ hours about an hour of how my night went, an hour of how her night went. And after like a year, 2 years of doing that, we were just like, this is getting to the point where why don't we just, I mean, we always knew maybe we should open a gym together. But truth be told, there's always a little hesitation starting a business with your spouse, something that not as many people would always recommend. But as her and I, continued to go, COVID happened. Well, when that happened and all the gyms shut down, now everything moved to online training. So by doing that, Nikita and I were able to combine our ideas of teaching her kids program at the Kali Group and me teaching the kids program at the academy. And we then were able to combine that. And essentially we're teaching very similar class styles to what she was doing there and what I was doing. And we found that during that time, how much we enjoyed collaborating and working together. And we're like, okay, those thoughts and worries that we had are not there. It's fine. So we then really quickly knew that, okay, we need to start doing this. This is our opportunity. And then she was still at the Kali Group, and I had told Hayden at this point that we felt we were ready to pursue our own thing because, we've been doing other gyms, but we don't have a family yet. We don't have any kids. We just got our dog baby over here. But we were just kind of thinking, well, if we want to do this, this would be the time to do it. And an opportunity potentially came up where I could have possibly gone over to the Minnesota Kali Group and work as like a managerial position there and take over the jiu-jitsu program. When push came to shove and we were kind of looking at all the logistics, it was a little bit too much to handle, for a little bit too many changes for everybody. And so we, also then kind of decided that, all right, well, that sounds great. Let's take a chance on us. So we did. We figured it out. We decided, and I was very fortunate. Burnsville was a spot that I had gotten the idea from one of my best friends, Chris, was telling me because he lived down here at the time, was like, my daughter Natalie could be working at your gym. And the second we opened the gym, he moved to Hudson, which was hilarious. But regardless, we realized it was a really good location. There wasn't as much Muay Thai down here in this area at the time. We were far enough away where it wasn't, necessarily interfering with Hayden over at Eden Prairie. We wanted to be at least 10 miles away from both them and the Kali Group, so we didn't, interfere with anybody. We wanted to part ways on very good terms with everyone, and we feel very strongly that we did. Everyone's very, very kosher about everything. So, because that's the nature of the businesses too. Sometimes, you have coaches that decide they want to leave, and the person that brought them up feels like they're being betrayed or whatever might happen. Like it's common in the martial arts world, and it has been for the last 30 years for sure. But we made sure that we didn't want to do that. We wanted to stay, amicable with everyone. We're an academy affiliate, so as well as a Minnesota College Group affiliate. So it just really helps in that sense. So then we found the spot and figured out where we wanted to be. And fortunately, like when we opened up, we had a number of students like yourself that had been working with me over at Eden Prairie that felt strongly that if I was to leave, that you guys would still want to come with because yeah.
100%.
And so that Nikita had the same thing over at the College Group a little bit. We weren't trying to do anything to disrupt the program. So, like I said, to be kosher and fair, forthright, I gave Hayden months and months of advance, as did Nikita with them. And so that we would be able to like, hey, if you need to make adjustments now, please go ahead and do so. I don't want to be disruptive to this, to the system that you got going here. So then we found a spot, opened it, had a few people coming over already. And then I think just word of mouth, being a part of an affiliation that is really well known. The Minnesota Martial Arts Academy brand is like one of the oldest brands in the Twin Cities area. And Greg has, if you look at his resume, has the most success in the competitive realm. So as well as just like teaching and everything else. So having that name brand recognition, I think, is really key around here. I don't think it'd be as big of a deal if we were somewhere out of state or something like that, where it's not as well known. But since there's Eden Prairie, Plymouth, St. Paul, Elk River, Brooklyn Center, now us, Mankato, Fargo, there's enough academy affiliations in the area that it does help in that sense. Same thing in Minnesota College Group. You go internationally, they've got dozens of schools over in Europe and the UK and tons others around the country too. So it's really helpful having that support system
Yeah.
around too of coaches and people that can, we're not part of it's a franchise sort of, but like we have our own, ability to make our own decisions, but we also are part of a system and have to fall
Yeah.
in with certain aspects of things too. So it's nice. It makes it easier for, having that guidance to go off of and everything. So yeah.
Plus, I mean, like you said, being a part of that lineage is second to none.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, I've been very fortunate. I got very good examples to follow, guys like Greg and Coach Andy and Coach Nat, and look at people like Kurt and Hayden
Right.
and, Coach Brandon and all these other coaches that have been affiliated around. And then you look at like everyone that we've been able to learn from over at the College Group. My first Muay Thai coach, Ray White, trained at the Minnesota College Group when Nikita started, same time she started there, like so, I think he left around the same time she started, so around 2008.
Wow.
So it's like, that's where we all kind of felt like
Yeah.
this is a good thing. And us being able to have the freedom to do it ourselves felt like I've always been someone that I mean, in school, it was terrible because I never did well in school because I basically would wait until the last moment to get anything done, ADD. I was diagnosed with that when I was 9. That's how my life would basically. But if I have the pressure on it, and if I'm my own boss, I can do that. It's harder for most people, I think, to want to get up and get motivated to go chase someone else's dream. So it's easier to get up and chase your own. That's kind of where we felt with it. And yeah, luckily I had a lot of people that kind of doubted me along the way too, which I never would have, I don't know, but there are definitely people that didn't think it would happen.
Really? I didn't know that side of the story. So then how did you deal with that when people were thinking that this was never going to happen? Which, I mean, like you said, it actually happened quicker and bigger than you probably thought it would.
Yeah. Well, the surprising part about that is it's not who you would think it would be. It was mostly family that felt that way.
They wanted to protect you. They didn't want you to take scary chances.
Well, so the way I dealt with that is just, kind of did how I always did, ignored it, and
And barreled on.
barreled on, and then waited for them to come humbly back and say, wow, we were wrong.
Isn't it funny? That is so true. I took a class about abundance, and it's so true. Your inner circle usually are the ones who don't want you to take chances. They don't want you to fail. They don't want you to get hurt. I myself have a scotch of ADD, and it's true. They go, "Oh, you'll never be able to be organized enough, or you're never going to be able to keep track of all of that." But they have no idea, like you said, about dream being able to carry that energy, and then you attract all these other things you need. Like Nikita is a perfect balance for you.
Oh yeah, I'm well aware. That's one thing I was very fortunate about too. Having, I think I was 31 when we met. So like it was, yeah, I was at a stage in my life where I was far more mature enough to be able to be with someone as great as Nikita. So
She's awesome.
had she met me in prior points of my life, I don't know if she would have been as enthusiastic about dating me. So
Fair enough.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, the other thing too is it's like, and I get what you're saying too, where family, want to protect you. But a part of it is too, is when you have different goals
Mm.
for what you define as what life is supposed to be. My family in particular kind of fell into that. Go to college, get a degree in 4 years, get married in 3 years, have a kid in 3 years, have a house in a year, and just following that timeline. And if you don't follow that exact timeline with your stamp in the job, go to the office, clock in at 9 to 5, you're not going to be able to
Be
live a good life, be
successful.
successful. And it's like, that's not what I define as success. That's what I define as misery. So for me, that's why I said, like, I could handle living below the poverty line for 7 years, waiting to get here, having to be on medical assistance because I can't afford health insurance for 6 years, you know, basically having to the point where my few years as being self-employed, I'm taking a loss on money because of the amount I'm spending on just to survive, to do everything. So yeah, you find a way to figure it out. And that's where like one of the best things I've ever heard was, this is such a funny thing, but it's the Ron Swanson quote from Parks and Rec. Do not half-ass two things, whole-ass one thing.
It's
And
true.
and it's so true. Now with where we're at, we've had a lot of success. We've grown really fast. As you said, we were able to move out of our first location. We're doing great in our new spot. Thrilled with where we're at. We've been able to bring in Dr. Robin. We've got a PT on site. We've got a fight team. We've got people that are aspiring to just live life doing martial arts and kids and everything. People always ask me, well, how do I do it? How do I do it? Are you still working full time? Yeah, it's the only way I can do it is like, you got to cut the cord, man. You
Yeah.
got to burn the boats. It's like, you can't just expect to put half your time and effort into something and expect to get full-time effort results. So, and I'm not saying that's the way to go for everybody. A lot of people, you don't have that luxury. Nikita and I didn't have kids. We didn't have a family that we had to support and be aware of. We were able to manage, like Nikita also teaches piano as well as martial arts. That's something she's been doing her whole life since she started both those things, martial arts and piano at the age of 5. So she was teaching piano out of our house when we opened the gym and kept enough clients so that we can continue paying our mortgage, even if our gym failed, so that we would at least have something to cover with that. And it's like, that's what I don't think people understand is like, you're running a business and she still would teach 12 lessons a day on Sundays so that we could still make that work. And we would take on as many private lessons as we could in the beginning. But then again, it was just trying to build and just trying to keep going. And, you know, one thing that actually I think was a benefit for me, surprisingly, was I had a horrible toe injury that I had happened when I was training about 5 months into owning the gym or opening the gym. And I was completely unable to train for about I think it was like 10
You had a
weeks.
boot. You wore
Yeah,
that boot.
I had the boot on for like 10 weeks, I think, and then like additional couple weeks of not being able to do much. And so I was so bummed out because training's such a part of my life, but I literally took that drive and that focus and just put it into calls and leads. And again, this is something I also try to keep in mind too, is like, I believe I might be butchering the quote, but it's Miyoto Musashi from the Book of Five Rings. And the quote is, once you understand the way broadly, you can apply it in all areas. It's like, once you know how to work hard and how to make the effort of being successful, then you can take that same ethic and drive and put it into other steps and other facets. And that's why I think like sports and martial arts is so important for like kids to be learning growing up. I would not have learned that had I not been a competitive athlete growing up and having done this forever. There's no way I would have been able to just innately figure that out.
I mean, competitive athletics or just athletics in general teach you that 99.9% of the work is in the day to day. Then you go compete, but that isn't the work.
That's the reflection of the work.
1000%.
Hmm.
That's how you show where your bottom is, where
Yeah.
your reflexes are,
I-
where your baseline is.
Yeah.
But 99, I mean, all of it is in the day to day. But that's, again, being an entrepreneur, opening up your own business. That is something it takes a completely different type of work ethic. And like you said, that scary ability to sacrifice for years.
I should make this very clear too. This was also only feasible because I had Nikita too. There's no, as I talked about this and telling people you can't half-ass two things, you got to whole ass one thing. I was able to have it with two asses. It was two of us doing it. We had two asses, whole ass in it. So not only was it just like me being able to try and figure out this and finding whatever space it was Nikita going through and getting the licensing, getting the permits, getting our realtor in line to find a place, figuring out our business plan so that we can get a loan from the bank so that we can purchase our gear and not go completely broke in the process if it didn't work out and then we're left with nothing. Like I was able to do this and am able to have the success I have because she is honestly more obsessive than I am about making sure things are done properly and the way we want it to be and like crossing the T's and dotting the I's. So that's like everyone always says, man, how'd you do it? How'd you do it? How'd you do it? And it's, well, get yourself a Nikita and you'll be finding it's a little bit easier.
A lot of successful people say, their number one key to success is choosing the right partner. I
Yeah.
can't do it. So I have a Jason. And a Jason for me, I'm the one who's out there taking the risks and having the big ideas and getting, funding. And Jason is the one like holding down our fort with calm, cool emotions
Yeah.
amongst two teenage girls and myself who cannot keep my feet on the ground. And he is there making sure that all of our emotions and our house and all those things, the appointments and stuff, are just like ready to go. He's got it. And
Yeah.
I know our house, which is to me the most important thing, our kids in our house are loved and stable. I know that that is taken care of. So like for you said, I couldn't do it without Nikita. I can't do my life.
Yeah.
So that to me, absolutely.
Yeah.
Your partner is by far the most important choice you can choose when you go for your dreams. Before we recorded, you were kind of getting to talk about the fact that you just turned 40, that you're getting ready to send more fighters to the TBA tournaments coming up than you ever have. But that, your body's getting more tired and sore than maybe it used to. But you were also talking about keeping up with people half your age. Tell me, how do you keep yourself going? How do you keep driving forward every day knowing that there isn't some big belt anymore waiting for you?
Honestly, I like feeding my ego just enough to kind of give me that spark, but not take over. So I like having it on Sundays when I have kids like Preston come in here, who's a 6'3", 200-pound, 21-year-old that all he wants to do is tap me out. And I can go and still be able to kind of mess with these guys. Or like some of these high school kids that are, coach, think you can take me down? Let's find out. Like I do still enjoy that part of it. And I have the luxury of being able to go, still be a student, going to Brooklyn Center a few days a week, training with other jiu-jitsu black belts that put me in my place and just remind me of how much I still don't know and how much I still have to learn. The ability to still feel like excited about being able to kind of like mess with guys a little bit, not in a mean way, but just kind of like, come on, man, you're getting beat up by a 40-year-old. What's wrong with you? I thought you had some pride. Come on. Talking a little bit of smack with them, but having fun in the process. And then being able to still try to keep up with all these guys that I go with that are also black belts, gym owners, people that are super high level. They're really focusing on jiu-jitsu, but then understanding where like, my role isn't to fight anymore, and that's fine. I came to peace with that, quite a long time ago because, that was 2011, so that's 14 years ago when I retired from fighting. I'm okay with that now, and I understand that being a gym owner, I can have my own goals and personal things I want to do. But for me, it was also rediscovering strength training, because part of the reason I had injuries too, I had a lot of knee injuries. So as I went through my 30s, I just kind of buckled down on just training, doing Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu as much as I can with the mindset of my eyes are bad, my knees are bad. I've just got to do this as much as I can before everything falls apart. And then when we met Dr. Robin, the physiotherapist who works in our gym, has their office in our facility, understanding that I can get back to strength training the way I did when I was a kid and having fitness goals that now are revolving around that, and then seeing how that it works in conjunction with my martial arts. Like, I was able to rediscover my love and passion for training Muay Thai as a fighter again because I could actually kick again. Like, I couldn't throw kicks for 4 years without just being in agonizing pain and limping for the next day or two, or week for that matter sometimes. So for me, I've been able to like refocus and channel that energy and the passion of wanting to be a world champion to now wanting to have the biggest facility in the Twin Cities, the most successful gym. I want to have a giant campus here that is an all-encompassing, as big as the Performance Institute in Las Vegas for the UFC. Like, that's what I want then someday. And so I know that, having surrounded myself, having the best partner I could have and surrounding ourselves with the right people and building up coaches, like, we have all the opportunity to do that. And there's nothing that can stop it other than just us stopping, which we're too stubborn to do. So
Well,
that's, yeah, that's a big thing for me is like, I still get excited about the idea that at 40, I have learned that my body was slowing down, but I also spent many years just not taking care of myself properly because I was of the mindset of tough it out, suck it up,
I mean,
get in
that's
there.
what we were taught.
That's all I was taught. I mean,
Get the weight up and get across the finish line
there were
however you
times
can.
in junior high and high school I wasn't allowed to take water breaks in football practice when it was 80 degrees out. I understand the science of now, like active recovering. The biggest thing is when we decided to open this gym, I wanted to be the example that my coaches are to me for other people. As much as there's days I don't want to do stuff, I can take a look in the mirror and be like, this is the first step to becoming a hypocrite and becoming the one thing you don't want to be. And that's like, I don't want to be an out of shape, overweight Taekwondo instructor who can't do half the moves he's trying to teach and, feel like I'm a fraud. I understand that as I age, my body will not be able to do things. And especially in the next 5 to 10 years, I'm going to be experiencing a lot of changes. I already have, but I will be. And I get that. But I also know that that's not a bad thing. And that's just about matter of shifting the focus and making adjustments. We had Professor Pedro Sauer, who's the head of our Jiu-Jitsu Association, was in town just 2 weeks ago. He's 67 years old, still does jiu-jitsu on the mats, still trains. He's had shoulder surgeries, back surgeries, leg surgeries, whatever. And he just talks about the idea of learning to be under control and learning to relax and, you know, being more efficient with your training. And so, like, there are definitely times where I still get like my ego can get the best of me, especially in jiu-jitsu if I'm going with somebody that I feel I don't want to lose to. But I also understand that it's better to tap now than to be feeling like unable to hold for the next 2 weeks or
Right.
unable to do this because it's like it's not all about me anymore. So that's really the big things. I think it's all of that, but the biggest thing is just trying to be the example that my coaches are to me and trying to just do that. And so, and Coach Greg emphasizes this all the time. Training is the heart of a martial artist.
Yeah.
So without it, everything else, you can get lost in all the other stuff.
And
But
it's not just training the moves, like you said, it's training the mind, it's training the body. I mean, I've noticed myself even in my own journey, as I'm grounding the corner of 45 this year.
yeah.
Like Nikita told me, she's like, relax, enjoy this more, have fun with your craft. And the more I relax, honestly, the better I do. The more fun I have with it, the better
Yeah.
I do. And I have to remind myself, Shannon, you're not a fighter. Come out here and enjoy this. Work
Yeah.
with cool people. Take in the craft. When you've got more energy, then go all out. When you don't have as much and you've got injuries, chill out and enjoy it.
Yeah.
And you provide the space for people to come and be that way. And you push people when they need to be pushed, but also you understand that not everyone is here to be an MMA fighter.
Well, and I think that's where it helps. Nikita has been a lifelong martial artist. She doesn't have the ambition to want to fight. She understands what it takes to fight and does do the things that's required of fighters, but still just doesn't have the intention of wanting to get out there and compete, which is totally fine because then we have somebody who totally empathizes with those people that are not necessarily ready to do that. I used to compete. I empathize with the fighters that want to get out there and get after it. I've also retired from fighting. I empathize with the people that used to compete or want to compete, but also want to just get after it. I always tell people this is that martial arts are meant to be a vehicle for health, longevity, mobility, self-discovery, and creativity. The truth of the matter is, though, is the second competition gets thrown in the mix, a lot of those get thrown out the window because it all comes down to wanting to win. So, which, at the same time, as you start pursuing that, those other aspects start to creep their way back in because you realize you can't have one without the other,
Right.
so.
Right. No, my girls are in their school age sports now, so they're not coming here. But you always told them, and they know they can go away and do that, and there will always be a space here for them.
Yeah,
Martial arts has that lifelong capability of weaving in and out of it. It's not going anywhere.
absolutely. And that's the fun thing is when you have people that are like, well, I did some training when I was younger, and then I did this for a while, but then I moved, and then I went into the military, and then I was out for a while, and I haven't done anything for like 8 years.
Come back.
Yeah, it's right. Come on, let's start back up. Just get it. Best time to start was when you were 10. Next best time is right now.
Right now. Okay. So you talked just a little bit about one of your situations that really took you out when you lost sight in your eye. I know that was a pivotal moment for you. Either that or another story, but when was a time that just really set you back in your athletic career? Something that just made you stop and then you had to come back. What's your comeback story and how did you get back to being an athlete or a coach?
Yeah, I think that would have definitely been it for me. It was summer of 2011. I was about 2.5 weeks out from what was going to be my final amateur MMA fight, fighting at the Target Center, right before I was set to make my professional debut in mixed martial arts. And I was training, and all of a sudden I noticed I started getting some flashing lights in my eyes, and there's some flashes in my eyes and stuff. Eventually, we realized after speaking to a coworker, that I probably had a detached retina in my right eye and something else going on in my left eye. So I went into the Mayo Clinic because I was living and training in Rochester at the time. Got to Mayo, they did their tests. They said, yes, you have a 98% detachment in your right eye, and you have a 40% tear in your left eye, from blunt force trauma. So we're going to undergo
Basically, just getting punched in the head.
yeah. Because when I was training at the time, I was training with a few guys that were former UFC caliber fighters, like had fought in the UFC and were trying to get back, like kind of making their final push at their big run back to the big times. And both the guys were significantly bigger, better than me. And it wasn't anything wrong with what the coach was doing. He was trying to build the gym too. So he would just kind of say, fighters, go do your thing, go spar. And I just had a style that I could not keep my hands up if my life depended on it. So I had already had glasses when I was younger anyways. So I stopped wearing contacts when I'd spar because they would just fall out all the time. And that, just didn't help. So the injuries occurred through training, and I had to like really reassess what I was going to do because at that day, I was literally, that morning, I woke up training for a fight. And that night, I was told, you're never going to fight again. Your career's over. And if you want to see out of your right eye, you have to have surgery right now. We can't, they even told me, it's like, we can't really even let you leave because you could sneeze or trip over the curb and you will go blind and we'll never be able to fix it. So I underwent surgery. Luckily, I was in Rochester. I was at the Mayo Clinic, so I had a pretty good place to be, good doctors. Had the surgery, went home. My dad came, stayed with me that night overnight. And the hard part about all this too was there was also a big setback. I didn't have insurance. Most people have school bills. I had a big old medical bill at 26 for 23 G's that I had to figure out what to deal with now. I moved back to Mankato and immediately started coaching. So it's like I had just gotten my blue belt in jiu-jitsu. I still had the most fight experience for the most part. The team there was growing, so I tried immediately to be like, okay, I'm your coach now. And I had half my teammates were like, the hell you are? You were my teammate a week ago. Now you're my coach? Says who? Kind of. So I dealt with a little bit of that, but the leaders on the team felt that way. Like my best friend Dan Moret came back and felt, he supported and encouraged people to like get behind it. My other coach Ray, but then Ray left. He had to move back home to Michigan. Dan moved, so it's like, all right, guys, you're stuck with me. But that those couple of weeks and I'd say, or those like 4 to 8 weeks between the surgery and when I was able to start training again was the hardest time and really feeling like my identity was shot. I was so mad because I felt like martial arts did me dirty.
It betrayed you.
Yeah, I felt like martial arts betrayed me. Not that I was just an idiot and didn't put my hands up when I block or tell people, hey, I think I'm seeing stars right now. Can you maybe not hit me so hard? I mean, like I said, I go home a lot with headaches from sparring. Wasn't sparring. Sparring was fighting in the old days. So yeah, it was a different time for sure. But so yeah, that all happened, and then it was just really the decision in my head of like, I can't walk away from this. I'm trying to walk away from it, and I can't. And so that's where like I just knew like I had gotten a job at that. I was working different jobs. At one point I was working at GNC. I was bouncing. I was buying and selling jewelry and diamonds. At one point, I was working at my dad's store, men's clothing store, and then I finally was able to get a job where I was working as a material handler at a paper supply company. I'd work from like 6 a.m. to 2:30, get home, make a smoothie, and then go up to the college and teach for like 2.5 hours at night, 5 days a week. Fridays, I would drive back to Rochester, go train jujitsu so I'd have something to come back and teach because I just couldn't walk away from it. And they were like, well, we need you. We need your help. Come help us. And so I basically did everything but sparring. I would still do jujitsu. I'd still hold pads. I'd still teach, but I wasn't like getting punched in the head. And to me, that was the right fit and right balance. And it's still working, I
Because you
think.
still avoid
I
blows.
spar more now because there's more people that I trust. Like I'll train and spar with Nikita anytime, and I don't worry about that at all. And there are some people that I am very confident working with, but if I'm in a new environment, I like when we went to Thailand, I just told everybody that during we came to sparring rounds, I have detached retinas. Can we do no head contact? And just because I don't know this guy from Germany, what level of intensity he wants to go with, or whatever is going on. So, but yeah, that was the hardest time of my life, and then just realizing that I couldn't walk away from it even if I tried. So that was like the big thing where I was like, well, I have to figure this out. And then push came to shove. This weird opportunity came out. My parents were going to move up north to Brainerd, and this tiny gym opportunity opened up to take over. So I tried doing that. Total bust. 3 months later, I'm like, get me out of here. And that's when I ended up in the Twin Cities.
I
So,
mean, you basically what saved you, and I mean, being an athlete, and so many people I talk to, your identity is completely intertwined with being an athlete, with
yes.
your sport.
Yeah.
Your
And
worth, your virility, your ability to perform.
and I have to try and daily remind myself that that's not actually the case.
You
But
are a
it's
person too.
but it's really hard not to
So
sometimes. Yeah.
It's so hard. So then you have this psychological depression when you have an injury of any kind. Like
Mhm.
all of a sudden you can't move.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you've gained weight because you can't move, or you've lost muscle mass, or you come back and you're winded because
Yeah.
you were sick for a week. Your whole identity, you're like angry at yourself and you're angry at the world.
Yeah. Well, we had a similar instance happen after that, but that moment was definitely the worst. But we had something too where Nikita and I were involved in a car crash in 2017 where we got T-boned. A car ran a stop sign without stopping and hit me, the passenger side, at 30 miles an hour. And I suffered a bad enough concussion at that point that I was struggling for about 5 months after that. I couldn't hold pads for people without getting just agonizing headaches. I would be standing in front of the room trying to teach, and I would just completely forget what I was teaching. Like I would all of a sudden just, what were we doing?
Coach.
So like it was a rough moment there for a bit, but then, going to the doctor and stuff and doing all the work and everything, we were able to move past it, but, and move beyond, and it was fine. But yeah, it definitely kind of like put those things in perspective too. Because again, that's an injury that nobody sees.
No.
They're like, "What's wrong with you? Your knees are not bad.
Right.
What do you mean? You got a headache?
Oh,
Sorry.
poor baby.
Yeah, you can't hold for me because you have a headache. Like,
And you're thinking, I am in my 30s and I would like to still know my name. I would like
oh
to
yeah,
recognize my wife when I'm 60. I would like to,
yeah,
have kids maybe someday
yeah.
and know their names.
I was 32 or 33 when that happened. It was, yeah, it was pretty rough. But and then the doctors were saying no exercise, and they're like, why? And they were trying to figure out like, why am I depressed? And it's like, because I can't do anything. You know, this
Yeah.
is how I do everything. Like, this is what I do.
That's what I do. I move for a
Yeah.
living. You're telling me not to move. But
Yeah.
that's where I think you and I, we have found our community. You found your Robin. I found my
Mhm.
Kurt, who teach us the healthy ways to keep moving in that active recovery.
Certainly.
They go, oh, okay, your head's not working. Cool. You've got other areas of your body.
Exactly.
Your knee hurts. Awesome. Let's focus on some upper body and core strength. They teach you where the traditional systems will say just nothing. They teach you how to continue. So, okay, when people think of Gus Kratzke, what do you want them to think, say, and feel? Like when you're not in the room, what do you want your legacy story to be?
Someone that brought happiness to others when he came into the room. I mean, at the end of the day, no one cares about what you do or what you make or how much money you make or how much you work. They care about how you make them feel. So I just want people to feel happy when I'm around and feel good and feel better than when I wasn't there.
I mean,
If I was gonna break it down to the most simple,
yeah.
basic way, I'd say that'd be it.
I've watched you put smiles on my girls' faces. I leave here always happy. So you do that.
Good. It's working.
It's working. All right. Now for our final question. What is one thing you would say to inspire the world?
Cliche as it sounds, trust the process, trust yourself, and don't give up when it feels like you have no other choice. Just keep going. And it will be so much better than you expected it to be.
You are living proof of that. Well, Gus, Coach, thank you for being here and showing us all the true heart of an unsung athlete.
Thank you so much for having me, Shannon.
Thank you for joining us on the Unsung Athlete Podcast, where we give a voice to you, the unsung athlete. I'm your host, Shannon Rose. Keep grinding without excuse.